minutes because this is being special meeting. We have to go over the minutes fast if we have to, so.
Why is a question mark on October 5th?
I got two things to add to the agenda too.
I think there was,
My paper says our next meeting is October 5th.
We have to move it because of their moving here.
So what, we gotta move it to November then?
Move it to November, can we move it, does the PC meeting have to be before the board meeting?
So November 6th.
Is a Monday.
It's okay. It can be the week before or the week after.
Okay.
Why wouldn't we have it on Thursday like we normally do?
Which would be.
That's just what Annie told me to tell, it's November 6th. That's the day she told me to put down.
That's the
day
Monday,
I did.
yep, that's the Monday.
I know, I'm just asking why it wouldn't be the Thursday because,
You're talking the 9th? Because the meeting's the 13th, correct? Board meeting is.
right, and I'm just wondering why it couldn't be the 2nd. Our
Well, the
normal-
'Cause they're
9th
not
is
done in here, but they're not gonna be done until the 4th of November.
What about the 9th of November? That's a Thursday.
And it's still, yeah, and it's still before the board meeting.
nope,
Good, I'll make it the 9th, but.
I'm just,
maybe she's thinking a board meeting instead of the planning commission meeting
No,
on Thursday.
because the board meeting is on the 13th.
Right,
so November 9th.
there's a reason why I had the question mark down there.
Yep.
And the meeting on October 5th, we can have it on the 5th, but we have to have it in office. For the special use permit, for the breakaway campground.
Okay.
And where is that at? We weren't even told anything about that. If we can't have our board meeting on the 5th, but we can have a public hearing on the 5th?
Board meeting on the 5th of what?
You just said we can't have our next PC meeting on October 5th, but you're saying we're having
We have to have a special use permit, right?
Yes, instead of board.
Right.
So we are gonna be here the fifth.
But we're gonna
Yes,
be in
but
the
we're gonna be in the
office,
Okay, it's gonna be in
because
the
it's
office.
just for a special use permit, so it'll just be us.
Same time?
Mm-hmm.
For a slow.
Okay.
Do it at 7 o'clock.
Yes. For the special use permit, for the breakaway campground.
You guys have, do they have to vote to move that to November 9th? Or no? Okay.
and it's still at 7 p.m.? No, I'm talking about October 5th.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 7 p.m. Just make sure it's noticed out, posted.
And that's regarding,
Special use permit for the campgrounds?
No, just one breakaway campground.
Well, campground.
Anything else? If not, I'd take a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Which was required two new things in there. Since you had two more things in the agenda.
That's what I have it right there, what you put in your paper.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Move approval.
I'll
Anybody
second
second?
it.
Then moved and seconded to accept the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. So we got the minutes from last month, or the last meeting. find
Change
something.
product. Other than the next planning commission, I can change the meeting thing if I have to.
No, we're good.
Because that was something that, because as of right now, this is what my last meeting was. When I type these up, it'll show me.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll go back.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Support. Moved and supported, accept the minutes as wrote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. The result for public comment on the agenda. Nobody's got any public comment? We'll move on. Did you want to introduce yourself? or-
Sure, I can introduce myself. My name is Leslie Abdu. I am the attorney for the township. Was asked to be here tonight to assist the planning commission with the public hearing on the solar ordinance. Happy to be here.
So is there any questions on any of this? I do have a couple things here. When you are, I see the changes that you made, most of them are corrections to grammar and all that
Sure,
kind of
yep,
stuff.
yep.
But now, like some of the others that were in the shaded black.
Yep.
Now, can you tell us what you want to do with that?
Yeah, so we'll start on page 2. I think is probably the first major change that we made, or that I commented on. So in the current draft of the ordinance, it has large scale and small scale solar energy systems delineated. But so you have a section that says commercial solar energy systems. And so typically so it's like you have them as 3 different types of systems. Typically how we delineate those two is we have one section that's small scale or private, meaning it's for on-site use only except for selling excess electricity back to the utility grid. And then you'll have a separate that's commercial / utility / large scale, which is what we're talking about when we think of solar farms, when we're generating electricity to be, used off-site. So my suggestion here with the shaded area and some of these red line changes was simply to remove the definition for CSCS, which is commercial solar energy systems, consolidate that with large scale. So then we just have 2. We have the large scale and the small scale, and then I just made some tweaks to the definitions to reflect the differences between those two, meaning, the major differences that where the electricity is going. So that's kind of the changes I made there, and then you'll see I tweaked the definition of solar energy system to add, solar energy system is the general term that's going to encompass both private and utility scale, but then we separate them out. So anytime the use of the term SES is in the ordinance, it's referring to all solar energy systems, and then when we do LSES or SSES, then we're separating it out into the private or the commercial.
Okay.
So that's just to kind of clarify
That makes sense.
those changes.
How about on like 13,
Yep.
D?
Yep.
Page 13D.
Okay. 13D. That was highlighted in the version that was sent me. I didn't make any changes to
Okay,
that.
okay.
So I don't know if that was highlighted for future reference for the planning commission or what, but I don't have any comments to that. So it's just shall comply with the airport zoning
Right.
ordinance.
Well, so you said page 13, right?
Yes, he said page 13D.
13D, standards and requirements.
Yep, standards and requirements, and D is shall comply with the airport zoning ordinance and shall not interfere or change.
he didn't know if we had an airport zone.
Right.
That would be why. That would be why.
But I think they voted to keep it in just in case something came up at some
Okay.
point in the future.
That's totally fine. Yep. Yeah, I know. Like I said, I noticed that was highlighted in the version that I had,
Okay.
so I didn't make any
So
specific
the
changes to
black
that.
part is where it was already highlighted
Yes.
before you got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it was already shaded that way. I'll go back and see if I missed any in between those two. Page 4, continuing on with the definitions, subparagraph 38. I highlighted setback, and I put a note in there. This may be already defined in your zoning ordinance, I'm not sure if it is. If it is, you probably don't need to add, because remember, this is an amendment to your zoning ordinance.
Okay.
So, I just made a note of that we might wanna cross-reference. You can certainly put in, a revised definition in this version, but, if you already have it, you may not need another definition.
Okay, because I think it is already 6 feet in the definition already.
I figured as much, so why reinvent the wheel
Right,
if we already know what it
exactly.
means?
So that could be taken right out of there then.
Yep,
Well, maybe that, you know, in case you don't have a copy of the other ordinances.
well, typically, this ordinance would be consolidated and, codified within your zoning ordinance. So it would be part of the big packet, it wouldn't be
Just like-
separate.
Just like the solar,
Yep.
It's gonna be part of the ordinance book period,
Yeah.
Right.
once it's accepted, it'll be part of the ordinance book. I see what she's saying.
We'll codify it within, so that when it says, like, at the beginning of the, it'll say, like, on page 1 where it says amendment of section 1524, we're gonna copy and paste this entire section 1524 and put it right where it's supposed to be in the zoning ordinance. So that it's right where you would look for it. Other changes to that page, again, these are just clarifying how we use terminology, solar energy system, solar farm, we don't need two definitions of that, or that solar farm means commercial or large scale solar energy system, so we don't need two definitions for that.
So that's three, it took them 44,
Yes.
46 out.
Yep.
Because it was three.
Correct. The next page, page 5, I just made a note here, so this is for roof or building mounted private solar energy systems. So this, in this version you have is, roof or building mounted solar energy, systems may be located on a principal building, accessory building, or parking lot canopy, but may not exceed more than 2 feet above the surface of the roof or wall. That's just more restrictive in other ordinances I've seen, including some of the more restrictive ones that I've been involved in drafting. The lowest I have seen is 5 feet above the roof. You certainly don't have to change that if you don't want to, just wanted to make a note of it that, that was on the more restrictive side. So, just a kind of a policy note there.
Does anybody want to have any debate on that?
I'm just saying in public.
Well, a maximum. It's a
It's
maximum.
gonna maximum.
So you could have it at 2 feet,
No.
Higher.
but you couldn't go no more this time.
Right.
Well, it might be, if they've got to angle it because of the roof, you might have one end that might be 5 feet and 1 foot that's down to 3 or 2.5 foot. That could be a reason for it.
Yeah, just by the nature of the technology and the way that they're.
I don't
Well,
have a
that
problem
probably
with
could
it.
be that much more, because you would
Yeah.
I don't find it.
Do we got a motion on the table?
I mean, we move to 5 feet, maximum.
Anybody to second?
I'll second.
Then moved and seconded to raise it up to the 5 feet for the maximum height on the roof. All in favor?
Right?
All opposed? All they pass.
The next page, page 6, I just added typically for these, we would require a building permit, in addition to a zoning permit, just be the nature of the technology. And then I added a couple of other sections here, these are just general things that we would typically wanna see for a private system, neutral in color, non-reflective, so it's not invasive on neighboring property owners, and then just an inspection provision allowing the zoning administrator to inspect, if necessary, given reasonable notice to the property owner. And then the other, highlighted one here you'll see is on subsection D2 on page 6. This is the maximum height for a ground-mounted private solar energy system. Again, this is just a policy note that I saw 12 feet. I've seen a couple of other ordinances with 12 feet, but generally speaking, the lowest that we typically go, when, or at least I recommend, is 16 feet. Just because of the nature of the panels, we're calculating it based on the height at the maximum tilt. So, 12 feet, from what I have been told from solar energy companies, is like they don't make them that low, so I just don't wanna risk any sort of exclusionary zoning concerns or issues with that. But obviously, that's a policy question for the planning commission, so.
But you've seen other ordinances where they are 12 feet?
For private, not for utility scale. Utility scale, the lowest I've seen is 16 feet, and I think you guys have, 12 feet for both private and for utility scale.
Well, this one right here that you have marked though is
This is private.
private.
Yeah, that's just a note that I put in there though, so I mean, like I said, if you guys wanna keep it at 12 feet, you can certainly do so. I just wanted to make a note that that's on the low end of what I've seen, so. But I know the intent is to, limit them as much as possible, I think, from the township standpoint.
It's to protect those that they're
Yeah. Sure.
not to limit them, it's to protect people.
So then we
Anybody
do
else
that, and
got
that's totally
anything on
fine.
that?
Private, I
I
would just, go ahead, keep it down.
I would say for private, keep it down to 12 too. I don't think we should change it on private.
Okay, let's leave it as is then.
Okay,
Alright, looks like there was a word just missing at the bottom of the page, number 7, was appearance. Must be generally neutral in color and substantially non-reflective of light.
okay.
And then we added on the next page, page 7, subparagraph 10, this is the same thing, just allowing the zoning administrator to inspect, because these are for the private ground mounted, so they could inspect for ground mounted or building mounted, private systems. Otherwise, no major changes to that page. For the following page, there's just some, like I said, grammatical, like referential terms, system instead of installation. Next major change is on
13.
page, 13, which we talked about. And then to subparagraph F, I just clarified that it's special use. It just says, this section talks about which zoning districts it's permitted in, but I just added the language to confirm that it is utility scale. You need a special use permit for, in those districts. So not too big of a change. Next, page 14. So subsection H, and this is something that I don't know the answer to because I'm not enough familiar with where your residential districts are located within the township. But this says, so no commercial or large-scale solar energy facilities may be placed within 1 mile of any residential district. I'm just not sure if that would completely eliminate the ability to site a solar energy system within the township or not, based on where your residential zoning districts are located. So I just wanted to make a note of that, because it's a pretty big radius, so it could be a pretty big radius.
Wouldn't our residential just be in town Coral and in town Truett?
I'm not sure where it's located, it would be within your zoning map. So,
What are lakes, are they special, are they different?
I still think a lot of that's agricultural with residential. I don't think that's just residential around the lake.
I don't know that.
And you know? That is all.
yeah, I just, like I said, because if it has the effect of completely eliminate, because a 1 mile radius, that's pretty big
That's
for
big,
your
yeah.
township. So I just want to make sure that that doesn't have the effect of ultimately saying, well, every property is within 1 mile of a residential district, so therefore no property would be permissible use anyway, but I don't know the answer to that, I don't know.
Yeah, cause I mean, our township's pretty big, actually, and if it's just in-town Coral and in-town Truett, I mean, like,
That's not encompassing
right,
the whole township.
right, cause like,
There's
I mean,
commercial, industrial property.
Denny and I
outside
are-
of
Denny and I are both like 3 miles from in-town Coral,
that. Okay,
where our residents are,
okay.
out at the lake.
And that's something, like I said, we
Contact
could
the
take a
city-
look
from the
at
city
that
limits,
with
so.
the zoning, because we just need to look at the zoning map and then map out the radius and see, okay, how much area does 1 mile surrounding the residential? Because most of your township may be zone ag, in which case,
Are we still a village?
Lee says there should be signs out that say village limit,
That's where the city
so,
limits would start, right?
Right, and then you go from there.
you don't zone in the village, I assume, right? Or do you? Does the village have its own zoning?
no, we're all, Maple Valley
So
is,
Maple Valley Township zones for the village as
Yes.
well? Okay.
cause we have,
Some communities.
we have 2 towns for Maple Valley. We have Coral and Truett are both Maple
Right.
Valley Township, so,
Got it, okay. Because some villages are incorporated into
Right.
their own
Right.
zoning, so. I just want to make sure of that. Well, that's something I can take a look at too, and,
Was it village though? Village limits?
yeah, it should be village, he thought there was village limit signs. And-
It used to be years back.
Did you used to vandalizing as a child?
Nope. I'm not worried about the laws, we're about the parents.
Can I ask a question? If that's the case with the residential districts, can this still be the way it is if we can verify where Coral village limits start and Truett village limits start? Once outside of that, is it still exclusionary?
well, it depends, so you may have property that's zoned residential that's not within those limits. So we have to look at the zoning map, not
Okay.
necessarily where
The
where
villages
those
actually
village limits are. So when we say residential, we're not talking about like just property that's used for residential purposes or even taxed residential. We're talking about how is it zoned on your zoning map? So that's
Is that
what
in
we
the
need to look
office,
at.
Susan, by chance?
Yeah, we found it.
at it
We looked at it when we were, we have a copy of it. I have a copy of it now too, so I can take a look at it. It wasn't available when we were revising the ordinance.
I was just wondering if it was, that we could access
Yeah,
it
we have
tonight.
it, we have one now.
Do you have one with you then, to where we
I
can
don't
see
have it with me, but I do have a copy of it back in my office, and there is one at the township office as well.
And so I just wondered if there was one we could access tonight, so we would
That is
know.
a long way.
Yeah,
It is.
I don't know if I have it scanned
That's
in.
why I thought if we knew where the city, actual city, and the town, village
I
limits were.
kinda thought it was right just after where the old school started.
At Kendallville.
No, actually, it was in town just a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And then if I remember right, it was kinda just before my
Actually, I
place.
do, this is kind
Think
of
so.
small.
Coming
Right there
in,
at the
I think I
town,
might
right in there in
actually
that
have-
Corner right there, yeah.
Yep.
So,
before
in-
Kendallville, I
Bailey
think
and
the
Coral.
speed limit changes.
Then,
I was gonna say, down
I
here,
think.
Coming in on, if you're coming in
Drops down to
before
30.
Kendallville,
Yep.
speed limit stops, and it's welcome to Coral.
Yes,
So that's
Really?
before Kendallville.
yes.
I would say, I think there's welcome to Coral sign at that end too.
But I think
think-
that's something that Gary had to put up for just welcome to Coral.
Unfortunately, though, the county is responsible for the village limit signs, I think.
so it does look like the only, because we're looking at R1 and R2, those are the only two zoning districts that would be part of this, and it looks like the only R1 and R2 are, Truett, Cowden Lake, all around the lake is medium density residential, Cody Lake, and some of Coral, and then the rest of the township appears to be
That
ag.
pretty much shoot out everything they want.
So you
So
might
if
be
you want a mile from
okay,
here,
I just
a
wanna
mile from here,
map
you're
it.
Right there to the best that creek.
accessible.
What other, you said Cowden Lake and what else, Leslie?
Yep.
Cody Lake.
Cody Lake, portions of right around Cody Lake are medium density residential, and then portions of Coral, the central portions of Coral
Yep.
are low density residential and commercial.
And you said Truett and then Cowden, right?
Yeah.
So that's.
Truefit, and then right around, the properties right around Cowden Lake are R2.
At a mile.
So those are the areas where we'd have a 1 mile radius surrounding those areas.
Truth Lake.
Yeah.
City of,
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Up at the top of the hill.
is that all
Portion.
together, Truth City and the lake? Is that the same?
Well, the lake's inside the city.
The lake, so it's just around the lake and then just to the west of the lake, and then the area right around the edge of Truefit is all A1.
So would there be debate on how far out to make this? The actual setback for the, away from the residential areas? Because 1 mile, you do 1 mile, and you're not gonna have very much room in there to put a solar panel.
Yeah,
out.
and that's my concern, is that even if we pull those areas out and we do a 1 mile radius around, that you're not leaving much of any space left, and I just don't want that to be a challenge. So you might wanna consider reducing that, just so it's not
So what do you typically see?
exclusionary. I don't actually usually see, setbacks from the district, usually we see setbacks from actual residences, or from what we call non-participating properties, or properties that aren't part of the project, which we won't know until they.
Right.
It's unique for me to see a 1 mile setback from a particular zoning district.
Do they have a normal range of setback from what is most?
No, because it's hard to have one because every township is different in terms of the way it's zoned. So, like I said, I mean, I would have to take what I was just looking at, and then blow it up and do a 1 mile radius and see how much property that's ag would be left over. And if there's none, or none that you could feasibly, cite a system on, you could have an exclusionary.
So then what would your suggestion be, go down to a half mile?
We could look at a half a mile and see, like I said, I don't know if there's a bright line radius without actually mapping it to say, I mean, a half mile, you might have obviously it's gonna allow for more property to be part of the system. But 1 mile, that's pretty large, so.
You make a motion to make it a half a mile?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, let's make it happen.
And I'll look at that, obviously, before the board were to vote on it, I'll look at it and make
Make sure
sure.
there's still room so it ain't exclusionary.
Yeah, I just don't, like I said, I don't want that one provision to make the whole ordinance be moot,
And then I see the next one is for the 16-foot for the 12-foot.
Yep, so that's where I made the same note where for utility scale, usually the lowest I see is 16 feet. But again, I mean, if you want to keep them consistent, that's up to you.
Anybody have a?
I just made a note of that.
We left it 12.
We left it
Well,
12 for
for
private,
residential.
for residential.
Because
This
the
would be
private
for
ones don't
large.
generate the
Sure.
same kind of electricity, so the
Right.
panels are smaller. So the way they fill up their height is gonna be inherently smaller.
And have you had others with commercial that were 12 feet?
I have never seen a commercial utility scale solar have 12 feet, but I've seen the private ones, which is what you guys.
Right.
So. The lowest I have seen for utility scale is
But
16.
you have to change it to 16 feet for the commercial side or the large scale. Not like it's gonna be 450 feet in the air.
Right.
I'll make a motion to make it 16 feet.
Okay, we got a motion to make it 12 inside.
I'll second
in the
that.
city.
And we go 16 to be outside, so it shouldn't be.
All right, it's been
Half
moved
20
and
days.
seconded to make it 16 feet, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
The next one, these were already highlighted, but I did make some suggested changes. So it looks like you guys had setbacks, it was confusing to me how this was reading. Typically, we would just have setbacks, bright line setbacks that apply to the panels regardless of what. So it says associated with commercial / industrial / agricultural. So I'm not sure what that means because these are all for utility scale. So they're all gonna be commercial / industrial.
I think that's what we're trying to get at. was
Yeah, they're not gonna be,
Commercial, not
yeah,
residential.
so that's why I just struck that, because, you know, you might have that for private, where it's an on-site for a business versus a farm versus a residence, but I don't think that's necessary for the utility scale.
And then you struck the
The
residential side of it?
yeah, so, I mean, again, what do we mean by residential setbacks? We already have the half a mile from any residential district, or do you wanna, I mean, we could have a setback from a residence, if that's what the intent is, but if that is the intent, then I would revise the way that's worded.
Yes, that's, I think what we were trying to get at was, keep it away from your neighbor's
Okay,
property.
so like, well, cause it's not permitted in the residential districts anyway, so you would need a setback from that, cause you
I
have
don't
to
think
have.
it meant to say residential, I think it meant to say
Residence?
resident.
Okay, so what we want is a 75-foot setback from the side or rear property line, from any residence.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, regardless of the
Any-
zoning
yeah.
district it's in. Okay, got it. Then I will revise this to say, so this is the last sentence of that, so paragraph J. It's gonna say setbacks from any residence shall be a minimum of 75 feet from a side or rear property line, and then the remainder can stay a minimum of 100 feet from any road, highway, right of way. That makes sense.
And then the rest looks like clerk.
Yep, and then this was already highlighted, but I just changed the terms, so it's large slur and leaf system, just to clarify that. Same with the other two on that page. I think that's it. All the other changes are just,
Yeah, I'll find out.
yeah, an amendment, yeah, section 3. So, so remedies on the last page where it says,
For the
I
amendment.
just put may, so the two changes here basically are just giving the township some flexibility in terms of how it, pursues violations.
Yep.
So I said may revoke rather than shall revoke. Obviously, you probably will go through that, but I don't wanna, there may be instances in which the township wants to take a different course of action to enforce an ordinance. Same with the or in the alternative, so it says additionally, or in the alternative, the township may pursue legal or equitable action to abate a violation. So it's just giving you guys the options, and the board the options to, without having to pigeonhole you into one way that you enforce the ordinance.
And then the others are for the section.
Correct.
Correct,
Yep.
the sections, what it would be in.
Yep, exactly, I think they were just references maybe from a different ordinance.
Yep.
So, other than that, I didn't have any.
Does anybody else have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, it looks pretty good now. You should have liked sometimes, so.
Thank you for
Yes,
exploring all
thank
that.
you.
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
thank
well,
you.
of course, we'll, make it look pretty, and take away the strikeouts and.
Unreadable. Big enough to be readable.
Yeah,
Shut up, I have bad eyes.
we'll make it like 20 point.
Thanks.
I'm Roman.
I was just,
I
rolling my
understand.
eyes, I was like, I can't.
I understand,
I can't do
and
it
you know
no more.
what, it shows up that way when you print it with the strike throughs on the side. Cause
Okay.
you see how it gives you
Yeah.
that big,
Yeah.
it makes
Takes
that
that
big
one.
margin,
Right,
that
I
makes
see
the
that.
text smaller, so. When I look at it on my computer, it doesn't look that way, but once we take that all away, it will look.
It'll look more like the one Nicole
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
So our setbacks will protect, participating and non-participating person.
And residences, yeah, primarily residences.
Commercial.
Yeah.
Then we're set with setbacks to the commercial.
Yes, there are setbacks for that as well.
All right.
Yeah, that was, let's see. You just have probably higher setbacks for residences. Yeah, so you have 150
Yes.
feet, yeah.
Okay.
For the commercial compared to the 75 and 100 for the residential. Anything else?
And then I would probably have open your public hearing on this specifically before you make a vote for the final ordinance.
So, if everybody is kind of done here, we'll open it up to public comment. And, see if anybody's got any questions, then we'll finalize it. Any questions?
Anybody awake?
Well, I'm glad that everybody's in,
So the 5,000, the 5 feet above the roof, is that 5 feet above the peak, or is that just 5 feet straight down?
5 feet from
I think
the
it's
roof,
from
I
the
would
roof.
say, wouldn't it?
Highest.
It's from the roof, at the highest part of the tilt.
So it'd be.
The peak.
Yes, yes.
But there's also that 2-foot border around the
The
panels for
edges.
safety.
Yeah. So they can't extend that far.
That way,
over
if
the
you
edge.
got a fire department that's gotta go up onto that peak, put a hole in, they're not having to run into the solar panels.
So sorry that interrupted, we kept 2 feet safety.
From the edge.
Oh, nice.
And this is only private on site. You cannot have a utility scale solar energy system that's roof or building mounted. Those have to be ground mounted. And they don't really do them building mounted anyway, cause it's too expensive. But
And number 2, 75 feet seems pretty close to a residence for an industrial solar field. Especially if they have a,
There wasn't 75 feet from,
150.
Yeah,
What was that last thing you were talking about residence then?
that was,
Private.
from
Private.
one property to the next property.
Okay.
You had to be-
No, it's 150 feet.
Side yards and back yards is 75 feet, and then to the front yard 100.
Is there a provision in there for phase converter locations or sound?
And it's one of the better ordinances we did find.
Okay.
I mean, it was more in depth than a lot of the other local ones that we could find, so.
Going to 3 or 4 of them, and this sounds like that is really good
Okay,
when you go by.
thank you.
yeah,
Haven't
yes.
been too different.
We just tweaked a few different things in it to make it more fitting for us.
That's-
They haven't presented, they haven't presented the bill yet.
Anything else?
Yeah, oh yeah, both sides.
Nobody else?
So just to confirm for say the setbacks again one more time, I just wanna make sure that it's clear and I wanna make sure we have them right in here.
From the residential.
Yep.
From resident to resident, it would have to be set from the property line 75 feet
For the private,
for the private.
yep, and then
From
for all
side
commercial.
to rear,
Yep,
and then 100 feet from the front where would be the road,
road right of way,
back to the back.
and then for all utility scale, it's 150 feet.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Next.
That's it.
And we'll make sure that's reflected.
Well, if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to accept our ordinance to be passed on to the township board,
I'll make a motion.
or then motion to move it on to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Sounds good. Thank you for the hard work on this.
Seconded that. Lee, thank you. I was just gonna throw Lee in anyway, but.
Yeah, plenty for everything. If there's nothing else.
It's easier to just put you down, Lee.
I'll give you a motion to adjourn the meeting.
What, you have public comment?
Yeah, is there any
You
other?
did.
You have one
Before
more
I
comment
motion
on
to
that.
adjourn,
Oh,
Comment.
I don't know if that's
But that was specific. to the
specific, so you gotta do public comment.
Okay, well, was there any other?
On any other township
Any other
business.
public? No.
I'll take a motion.
I'll
to
give you the
adjourn.
motion now to adjourn.
All in favor? Thanks for coming here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for being here and explaining everything to us. I
Absolutely,
appreciate
yeah,
it.
happy to, so we'll, get this cleaned up and get it to the county, the county's gonna look at it first, and
got something to look forward to.
Yeah.
The county gets it. Although it's my understanding the county has been talking about developing.
There's a lot in there.
So about what will happen there.
Well, because most of the townships here are zoned. So the county planning commission really only does work if there are multiple.
No. I do not. You don't understand.
Yeah, because most of your townships here in Multnomah County are zoned. They really only, I mean, they don't